This is the Real Footy Podcast. Thanks for joining us to tip round 18. My name's Andrew Wu and I'm joined as usual by Pete Ryan. How are you?
Really good to be here, Wooey. I reckon we're on a streak. I don't think I've missed a tip for the last 2 rounds, which is a shocking thing to say, isn't it?
You've just mozzed yourself.
I've just mozzed myself. I've just realised that. It hasn't been hard. I must say, I reckon a majority of the population would have been tipping most winners in the past few weeks.
Well, even I tipped 9 last week.
Did you?
I'm back.
Boys in a bit of trouble. No wonder they're going for, mid-season competitions and so on.
I was under the pump. The fans were getting unhappy and I produced a 9, so I've kept the Wolves at bay for
There's
another week.
9s and there's 9s. That was a 9 that was like, meh. Whereas there are some 9s that you actually strut outside the house on a Monday morning.
Oh, well, a 9's a 9.
No, it's not. A
Just
9 is
happy.
a 9, relatively speaking.
Well, one person who didn't tip 9,
Mm.
I won't mention their name, but it was the subject of a little bit of controversy
Is that right?
because this person, who I won't name, dialed in from London saying that,
Right.
I didn't tip Port Adelaide.
After the event.
After the event, we went back and looked through the data, the metadata, which showed digital trail of this particular person tipping.
Well, I'm glad you
Port
didn't
Adelaide.
mention them or identify them in any way, because that would be incredibly embarrassing.
No, those scones and cream, or whatever,
Yeah.
the strawberries and cream at Wimbledon
Yeah.
won't taste quite as nice now. So in the lead, we got Gleeson Pete, 102. Callum, one person who didn't tip the 9 last week.
Oh, he dropped off the pace.
Where did he drop? I must have tipped Fremantle.
He did.
Mark's on 99, Jake and Caro on 98, and forget the rest.
Yeah, I
Really,
don't think
long way
Mark
back.
would have tipped Port Adelaide against Brisbane, to be fair.
Well, he did. So, may not have meant it, but,
Yeah.
you got to dot the I's and cross the T's in this
Well,
game. He
yeah.
didn't, so he pays the price. Allegedly.
Tough business. Tough business.
Okay, first game of the round, Thursday night footy, Carlton against Brisbane, Marvel Stadium. And I don't think anyone's going to tip Carlton, but there is a kind of macabre sort of viewing session this week with Carlton, isn't it?
There has been every week, unfortunately, for the last, probably since the Port Adelaide performance, or the performance in Adelaide against Port Adelaide when they kicked their first goal just before half-time. Not sure it's macabre at the moment, particularly, I think there's a point in a coaching and club where they're obviously spiralling downwards and the confidence is gone and so on, where the fascination with what's happening is diluted a little bit. I think people want to see Carlton competitive now against Brisbane, and I reckon they've had an opportunity to recast themselves this week after that performance against Collingwood, which was dispiriting again in the second and third quarters. And I'd expect them to put up at least a better performance than they have in the past fortnight, albeit with limited capacity to make those improvements.
Well, they've got depleted personnel up against a full-strength Brisbane team. And you do feel a bit for Michael Voss, such a champion of the game and commanded so much authority in the way he played. And I was looking at a post on the week, during the week of him talking to the players, commenting on how I was lip reading, but it was saying the effort was effing deplorable, and you could just see the defeat in his eyes, which was quite sad when you think of the player he was.
Although I don't think his leadership qualities haven't disappeared. He's still able to hold himself pretty well. Fantastically well, given the pressure on him. It's just a matter of whether that old saying, if you haven't got any socks, it's hard to pull them up. Well, it's true.
Well, it's also, it's a hard game that he asked them to play, that contest and stoppage game.
I asked him about that today.
What did he say?
On Wednesday at the presser. He didn't like the question, really. He doubled down and said that every team is trying to play a contested style. I agree with you. I reckon it's, from what I've seen, they look like they've lost their belief in that game style and also their energy to play that game style.
It tests your mind, tests your body, and if there's no reward for it, you think, well, why am I doing this?
Yeah, and
you haven't been able to question. That's one area of Carlton you haven't been able to question in the last few years, just that effort.
Yeah.
But that's been lacking 3 weeks in a row now, so naturally you do question.
He didn't question whether the effort was there. He just pointed at that. And there's been no buzz in front of the footy. So Brisbane will be too good for them.
Yeah, I think they'll win quite comfortably. Can I make them my lock?
Yeah, of course you can.
I'll make the Lions the lock this week for me.
Yeah, good.
My lock got up last week.
Yeah, so did mine.
Who was your
I don't know, but I got 9, so I don't care who my lock was. One of them would have been.
Okay, what's your margin this week?
My margin is 27 points.
I think I've gone about 30. Might be a bit higher. Friday night footy. Oh, this is a good game. Gold Coast against Collingwood, People's First Stadium.
Yep.
Big test for Gold Coast. This is the game for them. I believe our columnist Bob Murphy will be previewing this game in his column this week.
Well, Michael Gleeson, one of our other columnists and journalists and colleagues, he actually said it was the biggest game in Gold Coast history, even though there's been quite a few of them. This is, at this particular point in time.
Well, a few of their significant moments Gold Coast have come against Collingwood.
Yeah, well, Stuart Dew, that was the end of him, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then 10 years ago, the Gary Ablett game where he broke his collarbone
McCaffrey
and they
tackle.
won.
Yeah.
And then
well, they lost a few players from that point on, including the little master, and that didn't help
he
them.
wasn't the same player after that, and they weren't the same team, and that was the end for Bluey McKenna. But I feel like this might be the night where Gold Coast announce themselves as
Why do you think that?
We're here. Oh, just that I think they're a more mature side now. Like last week, they were in a scrap against Essendon for 3 quarters, but the Gold Coast of Oldham have come out and kicked 6 goals to nothing in the last quarter. It was the way they were able to just shake off their opponent, and I was really impressed by just their resilience to be able to do that. And that was without Jared Witts as well and Sam Collins, who are probably 2 of their spiritual leaders. They'll be back this week. And they're against a Collingwood team that I kind of think, they're sort of in this no man's land now, aren't they? They're sort of waiting for September to come. They've done what they need to do to get the 14. They're 2 games clear almost, or 2.5 games clear.
10 points clear, although the Gold Coast have 1 fewer game at the moment because of the cyclone. I'm tipping the Gold Coast Suns as well. I think that they'll stretch Collingwood in the mid. Well, they won't stretch them in the midfield. They'll break even in the midfield. Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson, and with Witts back, is pretty formidable. And I also think that their forward line is tall. Glees pointed this out. Jed Walter, Ethan Reid and the more experienced Ben King are going to be a handful for Jeremy Howe, Darcy Moore, who are both in great form, by the way, and Isaac Quainer, who's playing footy like he was at his peak.
He's back. He's got that speed and run. And
he's got beautiful hands.
Strong in the air, isn't he?
Yeah, he just takes footy like it's a balloon, and off he goes. No, he's great to watch in that regard. And there's been a bit of illness at Collingwood also this week, which concerns me. A few players going down with the man flu. And
you need vaccinations.
No, we'll just having a bit of a sook probably, lying on the couch watching Netflix, thinking it's all too hard.
No Bobby Hill either.
No Bobby Hill. He is a big loss. Lockie Schultz has been missing as well and missed.
I think he's a chance this week.
He's a chance. And Bo McCreary's been missed as well. Just that speed up forward. They needed great performance from Jamie Elliott every week and Dan McStay. I'm not sure they'll be able to do it. So I'm tipping in a really tight game and without, supreme confidence that Gold Coast can win on their home deck.
Well, you can't ever be confident tipping against Collingwood. I'm disappointed you've tipped Gold Coast because I've tipping Gold Coast as well. So for the reasons mentioned earlier, I think they're a stronger, more mature and tougher team now under Damien Hardwick. They've had a few chances this year to really make a statement. And the most recent one being against Geelong, and they didn't quite get that done. They weren't disgraced.
That was at Geelong though, on a wet, muddy, shocking day.
Yeah. And Hardwick said after that the days of honourable losses
I think
long
he
gone.
Was very much laid down the law after that game.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like this is their big chance, first chance since then, to correct a few of those wrongs, and I believe that they will this week. Friday Night Lights, prime time, national TV audience.
And Glees has gone different, so
we'll have an outright leader. And I think Bobby Hill, personal reasons, he's a big loss. He brings so
on
much
that
flair
deck
to that
because
side.
the ball's going to be on the ground. Oh, and Jaspen's gone Collingwood too. Oh, your beauty. It's going to be action at the top of the table.
There's
somewhere far away from where you are, mate.
Well, I'll be gaining ground on someone or losing more.
Correct.
But look, 7 games, I can make that up.
Keep going. Adelaide Bulldogs.
Yep, so Gold Coast by goal for me.
Yeah, Gold Coast by 3 points in a thriller where the umpire makes a big mistake and Collingwood suffer.
Okay, Saturday afternoon. This is the game that was going to be at Mars Stadium, but it's been moved to Marvel. Western Bulldogs against Adelaide. This is another very good game, another swing game. They're full of these this week. There's a much better round than last week.
Yeah, last week was terrible.
The Crows lose Josh Rochelle, who's very lucky, I guess, not to have done more damage.
Yeah, that was good news that he didn't after watching it.
Because that could have been an ACL,
Yeah.
but he's going to miss 8 weeks. So hopefully for the Crows and for Josh Rochelle, he'll be back in time for finals and not Mad Monday.
Well, he's disappointed for him because he bounced back really well after the kind of public disciplining, I suppose, last year where they dropped him. He's done well.
He has. I mean, they're a new team, the Crows, this year. They play such exciting footy, which they were trying to do last year, but maybe they were trying too hard. This game, I think, top 4 spot on the line for the Crows.
Yep.
And for the Dogs, I mean, they could move into the top 4 if they win, and they could be out of the 8 if they lose. So there's a lot on the line for them.
And they need to beat a team above them. That is a reality for them. They've been competitive all year, consistent, which they weren't in previous years, the last couple of years, but they've really amped that up. And I think they'll be good enough to beat the Bulldogs, although I have concerns about their defence holding Riley Thilthorpe, my man, and Darcy Fogarty and Tex. I think that they'll be able to offensively and in the middle get on top at Marvel Stadium to beat the Crows.
Well, I'm going to go against you here.
Oh, you beauty.
This is how I'm going to just make up ground. I could be level with you by the end of the round. I'm tipping the Crows. Both teams need a scalp. Bulldogs are 1-6 against the top 9.
I still reckon the Bulldogs.
Crows are 2-5.
Right. Bulldogs Winfield's much better than the Crows.
Yeah, it could be one. But I like the Crows forward line. I think if they can draw even in the midfield, which is asking a little bit, they can. I think they're better equipped.
Liberatore was on fire last week with his 250th, playing great football. But did you see that clip where he yelled out to Sheasel, "How's your organic food going, Shees?"
Does he like organic food?
I don't know, but it was funny.
No, I think the Bulldogs' opposition in the last few weeks, I don't think they've played the quality that Adelaide have. And they're up in class now. So
Adelaide played Richmond a couple of weeks ago, didn't they?
They played them last week, but they also beat Brisbane a few weeks back.
Yeah,
lost narrowly to Hawthorn.
Only because
the Dogs have gone Richmond, North Melbourne, and maybe Sydney. Sydney's the one good team. In that mix, but it's a step up in class, and I need to make up some ground. And I think there's a lot of tipsters out there who would probably be in the same position as me. So
good luck.
Yeah. Good luck.
Stick with Dogs. I'm with the Dogs.
Make up another one. I'm tipping the Crows by 13
Dogs
points.
rarely lose at Marvel, by the way. They did lose to Hawthorn, but I think it's like 10 out of the last 11 or 11 out of the last 12, just for anyone wondering.
Good Marvel Stadium team.
Yep.
We're online all the time. Just search Age Real Footy on Facebook or Twitter.
Next game, Saturday twilight, Greater Western Sydney against Geelong, NG Stadium. Jeremy Cameron returning to Western Sydney for the first time since COVID, or since he left, really.
I spoke to Jeremy this week.
Yes. Is he looking forward to going back to his
He's not too... He said, I've played some good footy there, but yeah, I'm not really thinking about it too much. He's pretty laconic.
He's pretty chilled.
He actually answered a few questions. He thought, I haven't thought about that too much. And I genuinely believe that he hadn't thought about it too much, when most of the time it's just a response that, covers something up. But I think he was good to talk to. I mean, it's his 100th game for Geelong as well. He's been a super recruit.
Oh, magnificent recruit.
Yeah.
He's been... The sad thing is for Giants fans is that he wasn't thinking of going at the start of that year.
No.
and then COVID and everything changed, and then he left. But imagine that it's a sliding doors moment a bit for the Giants, because if he stays, then it's him and Toby Green in that forward line, two foundation players. They probably don't get Jesse Hogan, and but Cameron moves on. Hogan comes in, resurrects his career, and you'd probably say that the Giants haven't missed him, which is a strange thing to say given how good a player he is.
The Giants have missed him, massively missed him.
But they don't get Hogan otherwise.
The Hogan's a good save for losing Cameron. Fantastic, but yeah, I think they missed him. Certainly,
they covered
whatever happened, Geelong's got better through him.
Yeah,
and that's probably made it harder for Greater Western Sydney. I think Geelong can win this, although it feels like I'm tipping an upset. Greater Western Sydney's been okay the last few weeks, and they're starting
three in a row. They've won.
So they've won their 3 games without being brilliant. Finn Callaghan came back into the side, coincided with that stretch of wins, and he was brilliant against the Eagles by all reports, even though I didn't see that game, if I'm honest. And I just think the Geelong midfield their midfield isn't absolutely unbelievable, but I think it'll get them enough supply against
Bailey
the
Smith
Giants.
coming back in this week. And the injuries for the Giants worry me. Question mark over Jack Buckley. He's a test on top of Sam Taylor being out. I mean, if Buckley was to miss, then
Leclerc's been good.
But still, I mean, Buckley and Taylor are as good a 1-2 punch in defence as you get.
No doubt.
And Stephen Cornelio might be back. Lockie Whitfield would strengthen their sort of midfield.
Is it a milestone game for Lockie? Can I see
that? I'm not sure. Need to check that.
He's been a great player.
One of the great players for the Giants, probably in the top 5 of all time, behind Toby Green would be their greatest,
100%.
Jeremy Cameron would be.
We're not going to go through them now, though, are we?
No, we're not.
Gosh.
We'll save that for another time. So, but yeah, the Giants, they're a funny team because although they've won 3 in a row, they haven't been convincing.
No, I think that's why I'm tipping Geelong.
They haven't played a complete game.
Because they're hard to tip against Geelong, even though their lead-in, Richmond's not exactly a tough lead-in, and the Giants have a great record against them, both home and away.
And this is Geelong's last. I think it's their last game against a really good team going to the final. So they'll want to see how their game is, test it out.
How much do you think it matters that they haven't played at NG Stadium since 2020?
Oh, not a whole heap.
No, fair enough.
I don't think.
All right, Geelong
for me by goal. Saturday night footy. Oh, good. Richmond against Essendon. This is not a great game.
This is your sort of game.
Oh, I'm down to cover it.
Yeah, exactly.
I tried to get
Why
out.
wouldn't you? You put up your hand. Don't.
I tried to do the Bulldogs Adelaide game.
No. I know you too well.
Well, Richmond lost 7 in a row. Essendon lost 5 in a row. Could we get a draw?
We could, but it's a very unlikely result. We've only had one this year. Yeah, I don't think so. I think Essendon, this is the time to cash in. Richmond are severely depleted with Tom Lynch gone, and now, unfortunately, Sam Lawler gone for the rest of the year. They're hanging on a little bit. I think they've done a great job to be as competitive in most of the games as they have. I think they've been
the last month, average losing margin of 66 points.
Yeah, so you'd think this will be these are those games that you're under a lot of pressure if you're Essendon, because people expect you to win, but you're not that good, and I mean that respectfully, that you can just rock in and get the job done. So
they've got a lot of injuries as well.
Yeah.
And Essendon are a side, even when they were going better under Brad Scott in the last couple of years, that with more experienced teams, that they have tended to struggle to win against the bottom sides. Like they get over the line, but it's a 1-2 goal margin. So.
Yeah, and is Caldwell playing?
No, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks.
So that's a
Redmond
massive
might be
loss for them, because he's been one of their shining lights this year. Look, Essendon just have to go and get the job done. Regardless of what is on paper, it will be at least equal to Richmond. And
8 injuries for them.
They're a better team.
They are a better team. They should win, but you can never be certain with Essendon.
Yeah, and Richmond do benefit from Nick Loston, who's playing his milestone game, which, again, football people don't put any credence on that, but you always know that teams do fight for longer.
Well, they should, shouldn't they?
Yeah, and they're Nathan Broad and Toby Nankervis, any team, Prestia, with those guys in it, you can't underestimate them. But I think Essendon's...
I think we'll see improved performance from Richmond. Noah Bolter will miss. Not that he's done a whole heap, has he? The off-again, on-again nature of his season is not helping his performance.
Not a great season for Noah. No.
No, well, the year started... Well, last year finished in a bad way for him and hasn't gotten much better. I think Richmond will make a game of this. Just because after so many bad performances, you need to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Yeah, Taj Houghton you'd think might get a game, so it'd be good if he does. They were talking him up at the VFL last week. It's been an okay year for Richmond, and if they could knock off Essendon, it'd make it a really almost a tick for the season.
Well, no, but people were saying that they wouldn't win a game.
Yeah, this would be their fourth win.
Got the three, so if they could pick up the fourth, having beaten Carlton and Essendon, I think Richmond people would be quite happy with that.
Having said all that, I'm tipping the Bombers.
Yep, Bombers for me, 21 points. But I think it might be even tighter than that. Next game, Fremantle against Hawthorn, Optus Stadium, out in Perth. This is another very good game, another swing game. And I'm hoping you're tipping the away team, but I suspect that you're going to be safe and tip the home side. No,
I'm making a case for the Hawks.
And you're tipping the Hawks?
Yep. I'm tipping the Hawks. I think this is probably 60-40 Fremantle's way on your instinct. And you'd think that at home it's hard to tip against Fremantle.
You're going against your instinct then?
A little bit. I'm thinking through what Hawthorn have at their disposal, and I think that their fleet of small forwards will actually trouble Fremantle's defence if they can get the ball in there enough, and if they can bring it to ground, which I think Marbio Chol and Max Ramsden, assuming he plays, will be able to do.
I'll pick Jack Gunston, won't they? Just even though he's got to fly west. Or would this be a game they...
No, Norm would go. And I just reckon their form has been patchy, which Sam Mitchell spoke about. But when the coach speaks like that, I reckon that they sharpen their lens and they'll be a much more dynamic team against Fremantle. They'll be much more direct with the footy, and their pressure will be much more constant than it was last week against St Kilda. And Fremantle are coming back from a tough game, tough loss against Sydney. Under a fair bit of pressure, they're now out of the 8, and I think Hawthorn can knock them over.
I'm tipping Freo because I think they weren't that bad against the Swans. I mean, the midfield let them down. Sarong was held to 11 possessions, was it?
Yeah.
By James Jordan, who claims another victim.
Great player. Great asset.
Yeah, and Finn McGuinness, would the Hawks bring him in to get the job done on Sarong? He's been out of favour, isn't he?
Maybe.
And maybe Mitch Lewis or Cal Shadir come in.
I reckon Mitch will get another week. I'm not certain about that, but one of those, either Ramsden, Lewis, or Deer plays, so you don't really lose or gain much with either of them. In form, Mitch Lewis is probably the best of those three.
Yeah, I couldn't believe some of the conversations that got started after Freo losing last week. I mean, out west, people say, suddenly the heat's on Justin Longmuir again. They did win 6 in a row, and they weren't disgraced last week, travelling across the country to play Sydney, who I think are back in form again. And
they'd beaten Hawthorn 6 of their past 6 times before Hawthorn beat them in Tassie last year, so it's a pretty good record.
Yeah, I think Freo are a bit better than everyone say they are. They're a young side, so can sort of be up and down a little bit, and maybe last week was their down after being in good form for a couple of months. It's why it's
Sydney in some respects, because you can't. It's very hard to win 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row.
And the loss can sharpen you up. You know, in another way, just like the coach.
Right, you've talked me into it. I'm tipping Hawthorn though.
I'm tipping Fremantle, so that's another one I'm going to catch up ground on.
Yeah, no, it's
fingers crossed.
Good on you. It's like you've a jockey that follows the best horse in it and just sweeps around him at the end. That's what you're trying to do, isn't it?
Run on your slipstream.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's an interesting way to put it. It's very cocky.
It is very cocky. So I'm cringing as I say it.
Yeah, you never want to be too confident in this game because mother tipping has a way to bite your back. Next game, Sunday afternoon, Melbourne against North Melbourne. Doesn't look like a great game on paper.
No, this is again, and I'm actually into this game. Melbourne Hawthorn at the MCG, isn't it?
North Melbourne.
Sorry, Melbourne,
MCG.
North Melbourne, MCG.
I think there's a lot riding on this game for
exactly.
both clubs.
No, this is kind of sit back and laugh.
Oh, laugh.
Game.
I won't quite laugh, but I think Melbourne, they were embarrassed by North Melbourne in round 2, so they'll be stung by that. And North Melbourne, after a good month in May and June, suddenly are back in familiar territory, coming off 2 heavy losses and giving up big scores again.
They're giving up big scores, which is a worry, but their backlines, it's been more consistent and it's been playing more of as a team. But I think they missed Luke McDonald last week, which, he's been good this year. He hasn't always been at his best in the last few years, but he's been good this year. And they also missed Luke Parker in the middle.
Yeah, Charlie Combin's also another one. Yeah. Maybe Nick Larkey in doubt as well.
Nick Larkey in doubt. Nick Larkey was outstanding last week, particularly early, before he got injured.
Injured himself, celebrating.
Is that what happened?
Well, he celebrated a goal and then sort of pulled up a bit short and wasn't the same player after that.
Yeah. Have you ever done that?
I have been injured, but not from celebrating because I didn't do anything worth celebrating.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm tipping North Melbourne. I'm going against the grain. I think that their form they need a win. They're good enough to win. They've got a midfield that will run Melbourne's classy, brilliant, high-performing midfield off the park. When I say that, I mean that Petraka, Oliver and Viney and Gornar obviously have had great careers.
Big names.
Yeah. But I think North Melbourne can actually get them in the middle. And Larkey is a massive loss, but I reckon if you give him enough supply...
He might still play.
Yeah. Well, if he doesn't play, that's a big decision, actually.
He does have 10 days
I might watch
games.
the teams and change. But
can't do that.
No. I'm tipping North Melbourne for all the reasons. I've watched them the last couple of weeks. They've just got a bit of run about them when they're at their best.
Which you haven't seen in the last 2 weeks.
No, I did say, I reckon North Melbourne were pretty good against the Bulldogs last week. For 2.5 quarters, they were with them the whole time.
Yeah, maybe. You say it differently to me. I didn't like their performance overall. I don't like it when they give up big scores. And I think Melbourne...
Bulldogs did too.
Well, that's why I haven't tipped the Bulldogs. I'm tipping Melbourne only because I think they're a better side than North. They don't have as much trouble getting over the line in games, and I think Christian Petrarca, Clayton Oliver, Jack Viney, they'll be stung after having their colours lowered in round 2, and I think they're going to get themselves up for this one big time. And I'm tipping the D's. North have a lot of trouble winning. So even when they're in winning positions, they don't.
So do Melbourne for the last 5 weeks. They haven't won. And they're only 2 points ahead of...
No, but they know they're more familiar with the concept.
And I'm going with Libby Birch and Emma Carney. Emma actually has stepped down from the captaincy.
Yes, I noticed that.
Team.
To focus on her tipping? Or?
That didn't get a mention, but I'm pretty sure that was the subtext to it.
She's been a magnificent player for that club.
Yep.
And will continue to be one as well.
Yeah, even if she's a hopeless tipper, she can play well. We're the opposite.
Well, I can't tip well. So.
No, they can I.
Okay, next game, Sunday afternoon, St Kilda.
I can see a crash coming for me. I'm just being so stupid.
St Kilda against the Swans. Swans missing Joel Amati and Tom Papley, which takes a little bit of momentum out of their run late in the season. But I still think they can play finals, the Swans. But they need to win every game, and I think they'll continue this week.
Yeah, I think they'll beat the Saints. The Saints are, in horse racing parlance, they're just going around, aren't they? They're running 6th, 7th in races. They're not really troubling the dividends. They're not, they're just thereabouts. They're competitive, but they're not going to win, and they won't win up in
running for minor prize money.
Yeah,
this is at Marvel though. It's not at the SCG. It's Marvel Stadium.
Oh, Marvel Stadium. Well, that changes my tip.
They did beat the Swans last year, 12 months ago. Bet this time of the year as well. But I can't see them doing it here. They've got a few out. Liam Stocker, Jimmy Webster, Mateus Filippo. Webster and Stocker are 2 of their more senior players. And as exciting as some of their kids are, it's very hard to sustain at that age.
Yeah, I think Sydney wins.
And yeah,
regardless of where they play. They could play at Mars Stadium and they'd win.
well, they're playing at Marvel and they'll win there.
Correct.
But I think it'll be a close-ish game.
Good.
And I'm expecting big performances from Isaac Heaney and Chad Warner.
Well, they just got class, haven't they? That St Kilda haven't got.
Yeah, exactly. And the final game of the round, Port Adelaide against West Coast. Good time slot for this game because not even I'll be watching it. No, I will be watching it just to monitor the proceedings. But I think Port Adelaide win this comfortably.
Port Adelaide will win and Sydney's my lock.
Okay.
Yep.
Not going to make Port your lock?
Well, I can't, can I? Is West Coast available as a lock?
I think they are. I think they're just
Port's my lock then. Port's
Richmond.
my lock.
So you're going with the Swans as your lock?
Yeah, I'll go with the Swans.
Go with the Swans.
And I think Port will win, although I reckon this will be a tough game. West Coast were deplorable last week, but they won't be that bad again.
No, well maybe they will be.
No, they won't. They'll bounce back.
Can you be certain?
Because they went away from their roles. They just didn't play as a team last week. And
they were good 2 weeks ago as well. So maybe a bit of hope for West Coast fans, but...
And they lose Sam Pelpepper, they lose Asava, they lose Vicentino. Yeah. Anyway, I'm tipping Port Adelaide, having said all that.
I think they'll win and kind of keep their very, very slim finals.
This is going to be a tense weekend because I've made a lot difference. Brave calls. I don't know. What am I doing? Anyway.
Well, one of us will be... Well, yeah, hopefully.
I'll slink or strut in next week.
We'll probably split them anyway.
No, you won't know the difference, will you? That's our motto, isn't it? It doesn't matter how you go each week. Isn't that you couldn't tell each week the way we come in. We're exactly the same.
Inside the four walls, whether you tip 9 or tip 1.
Exactly.
Always the same. Okay, that's all we got time for today. Thanks for joining us. You can see the rest of the experts' tips at theage.com.au/AFL. Make sure to subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send an email to realfootypod@theage.com.au. We'd love to hear from you. Podcast will return on Monday with Michael Gleeson, possibly the new tipping leader.
Possibly.
Thanks for listening and may your team win.